What is the purpose of our action? Is it for a cause, or is it to satisfy our own ego? Now, by a cause, I just don't mean some social cause alone, but I mean any work that we carry out which does not involve the satisfaction of our ego. So that's the question. Why do we perform our work? Is it for a cause, or is it to satisfy our own ego? Hi, my name is Varun and welcome to episode 8 in Decoding the Bhagavad Gita. In this episode, we are decoding verses 7 to 9. So without any further ado, let's proceed to the verses. Now, much like the previous video where we had covered 3 verses, even in this video we will be covering 3 verses from 7 to 9. Now here is where Duryodhana starts to realize that he's been quite immature about putting out his anxiety and complexity onto his soldiers and his team. So now he decides that he's going to take it back one by one. So he starts by looking at the Kaurava army and he says that each and every one of these men are going to die for me in battle. They are all fighting to make me proud. Now here the key word is me. Now the fact that he had stated me, that they're going to die for me, this battle has become between the Pandavas against Duryodhana's ego. Because now all the army men do not have a reason to fight for themselves, but they are fighting just to satisfy one man's ego. So now here, for the Pandava side, it is for the righteous cause, for their share of the kingdom. But on this side, for the Kaurava side, it is for one man's ego and his pride to remain in power. So this is not just any ordinary battle. This is a fight between cause versus ego. Now I'm going to share an very interesting analogy, similar like this, but they were not battling against each other, on what happens when one fights for cause and what happens when one fights for ego. Now when you talk about cause versus ego, now we need 2 perfect people to represent these 2 words. These 2 words are actually really important when we consider in taking out our actions. For cause, we have the father of the nation, the man associated with giving freedom to India, Mahatma Gandhi. Now for ego, he is considered to be one of the biggest egomaniacs in the world, responsible for millions of deaths, Adolf Hitler. Now here both of them were very influential people, but they went about it in completely different ways. Mahatma Gandhi was very soft-spoken and he believed in the path of non-violence. On the other hand, Hitler believed in power. He said every day that he was the Führer of Germany. And in this story, Mahatma Gandhi, while we have all learned in our junior high school that the famous Salt Satyagraha March, there were a lot of followers behind Mahatma Gandhi fighting for the movement. And everybody were getting hit much like how Mahatma Gandhi was getting hit. And one British soldier goes to one of the followers of Mahatma Gandhi and asks him, "Why are you getting beat following that man? That man is delusional. Why are you following him? You're getting beat because of that man. Why is that?" To which the follower responds by saying that we are not getting beat because of Mahatma Gandhi or for Mahatma Gandhi. Rather, we are getting beat for the cause. We are all fighting for the same cause. And the cause is to attain freedom for India, our land, our country, India. And that is the reason why we are fighting. And Mahatma Gandhi is just the face of the movement and nothing more. So all the people, including the leader himself, is fighting for one specific cause for the entire nation. Now, a stark contrast story to that of Adolf Hitler, where Adolf Hitler is sitting in his office in Berlin, and there was a journalist that walks in, and journalists generally think they are smart. So he asks an important question to Hitler, where he says, "Do you actually think that your army people care for you? Do you think that they actually care for you even though they work for you?" And And Hitler laughs and says, they care enough to die for me. And the journalist has a very subtle, unknown reaction as he still processing what he said. So now Hitler decides that he's going to show him a small clip of what his army is actually capable of. So he calls one soldier from his battalion and tells him just one word: jump. So that soldier opens the door and he jumps and he dies. Now Hitler sees the journalist completely confused and he calls a second soldier from his battalion and says, you two, jump. And that soldier too says, yes, Führer, and he jumps. Now the journalist is starting to get very jittery. He doesn't know what's happening. These people are actually dying for him. And now Hitler is starting to get a kick out of people listening to him, and he says, wow, I might as well make a matinee movie out of this. So he calls a third soldier and he asks him to jump. And now the journalist wants to be the superhero. He goes out, he jumps out of his seat and goes to save that particular soldier. And upon going to that soldier, he asks him, why are you wanting to die? Why are you listening to that lunatic of a man? Don't die. You have a life. Live it. Don't waste it for a lunatic. And now here the soldier has a very subtle and yet very strong response. He says, death is way better than working for that lunatic. And he jumps and he dies. Now for both people actually have a ton of followers. And people die working for both people. But the reason is totally different. Now if you take Mahatma Gandhi fighting for a cause, it has been over 70 years that he has won freedom for India, and till now the freedom lasts. It's perpetual when you fight for a cause. Now Hitler said his empire is going to last for 1,000 years, the Third Reich. But it didn't even last a day after he died. So when you fight for your ego, your results are very, 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 very minimal. And it is temporary. So again, I ask the question that I asked at the start. What is the purpose of our action? Is it for a cause? Or is it to satisfy our ego? Now don't you forget, guys, it will always lead the way. All you have to do is free your mind. And that's the wrap to episode number 8. And until the next episode, it is goodbye.